Hey, and welcome back to the Transparent HR podcast, where we bring real conversations to help you navigate your career and workplace challenges. It's your host, Prince Tate, and you are listening to another episode. Today, we are talking about empathetic leadership and really how it shapes workplace culture, impacts morale, and what you can do if your leader isn't showing empathy. So for today, joining us is Javon Wooden. He is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Bright Mind Consulting Group. Javon is a dynamic speaker. He's a certified coach, a business consultant specializing in empathetic leadership and workplace culture. As an Army veteran and Bronze Star recipient, he brings a unique perspective on resilience, leadership, and creating meaningful workplace change. Javon, welcome to the podcast. How's it going, man?
Man, I appreciate you having me, Prince. It is going well, and I know we're about to have a phenomenal conversation.
Absolutely, man. We met a few months ago, and we both have been supporting each other on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing my episodes. But I'm super excited that you are here, man. I have a chief executive officer on my podcast.
You are a chief executive officer. You running this show, man.
hey, man, it's a mindset thing, right? Right.
Absolutely.
Well, man, thank you so much. Before we jump in, tell us something unique about yourself that many people don't know about you.
Man, something unique about myself is as I've gotten older, everyone thinks I'm an extrovert because I'm always like this, talking to everyone.
Okay.
But I've actually grown to be more, to enjoy solitude a little more. And I think that would surprise a lot of people who know me. They're like, yeah, okay. But no, truly, like I have to recharge after I do like any in-depth conversations, after I speak, after I go out into crowds these days.
That is so interesting. I think I'm an extrovert. I'll just say that I love people. I told my boss Friday, I said, I love coming to work on Mondays. Like I'm for it. Look, Look, the weekend has gone by. You know, I've sat down and been at home most of the times with my family. And by the time Monday come, I'm ready to get out there.
Right. Hey, your boss probably want to multiply you right now. Like, yeah, I need more of you.
She like, She like, nope, not me. But that's why she got me, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to know your strengths.
Yeah. So, I really want to talk about how did you start this journey of really talking about empathetic leadership and really getting into your business? How did all this get started?
Man, you know what? I was in the military. I was in the Army for 12 years. And this journey actually started on my last deployment. I did 3 tours overseas. And when I was in Afghanistan, 2017, I was like, what can I do? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't enjoy technology. Like, I don't want to protect ones and zeros. So there has to be more. And I Googled it. I was like, what can I do to help impact people? Because that's really what I wanted to do. I had been told that I was good at motivating people, good at helping people find their value and their strength, and getting them to actually take action. So I was like, okay, motivational speaking, got it. What else? And when I Googled, it was a list, and I found coaching, and not coaching in the sense of like when sports, we're thinking about somebody who draws up the plays and tells them how to execute it, but coaching in the sense of asking people powerful questions and helping them discover the answers within themselves. And when I did that, it just set me on this journey. I got certified through International Coaching Federation. I got a ton of assessment certifications like DISC and Emotional Intelligence Quotient. I wrote a book in 2021 called Own Your Kingdom, How to Control Your Mindset So You Control Your Destiny. And going through a lot of life, right? Having experiences, being someone who has bouts with depression and PTSD, being someone who's gone down bouts with alcoholism and everything else under the sun. I was just like, all right, how can I turn all of this and take it along my journey to help other people understand that vulnerability is strength, and that if you care for yourself and you care for others, God will take care of you. And that's what I do today. That's how I found this calling.
Man, I really appreciate how you walked us through your journey, because individuals always, or people, let's just say, they always try to figure out, okay, how do you find your purpose, and how do you really get into it? And I often tell people that your purpose or your gifting is not for you, right? It's for other people to indulge in and to receive from it. But there's a scripture that says that your gifting will make room for you, right? And so, while a lot of times people think, oh, my gift, and sometimes it can be exhausting, sometimes it can be tiresome, but I think there's joy in knowing that someone out there is looking for what you have to offer.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say thank you for just diving into that, and really elevating and helping people, as you said, coaching people, so they can, you ask those hard questions, you ask those things like they probably have never thought about, and really giving them what they need to be successful. So I just want to say kudos to you, man, for just doing that.
Man, I
So
appreciate you. I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. So the real question, a lot of people may not know what empathetic leadership is. Can you help us dive into that? And what is empathetic leadership? And how can people have a better understanding of what this is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Merriam-Webster definition of empathy really is about being able to understand and process the feelings and emotions of others and influence them in some way, shape, or form. But my definition is a little bit different from that. I look at empathy as a way to understand how to best support and provide the resources that someone needs so they can be the best version of themselves. There was a quote that I heard one day. I can't recall who said it, but they said a butterfly can't see their own wings. And for me, that's what empathy does. It allows people to
Wow.
see the beauty and the power within themselves that they may not have ever tapped into. So if you're an empathetic leader, you're not coming from the place of what can I get from you? You're coming from a place of how can I get the best from you, right? How can you
Servant leadership,
become that?
man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's servant leadership. It's how can I do what I need to do? How can I support you? How can I uplift you? How can I inspire you? How can I influence you so that you can do what you serving your purpose, right? Whatever that
Hmm.
looks like. And it's the ability to identify that the role that someone is embedded in is not, that may not necessarily be their strength, but you won't know that unless you get to know them. So, right,
Get to
understanding
know
what
them.
motivates them, understanding their drivers, understanding what makes them tick, understanding their baseline. How do they normally act? What's their way of communication? Like really getting to know that person for who they are, not for the job they are in.
you you're already kicking this episode off, just man, with some powerful words, and some of these quotes that I'm gonna have to steal, right?
Hey, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't
But
mind at all, man.
but when we talk about leadership, right? And one thing that you said was really getting to know uh, the people who work for you, or I like to say with you, because good leaders understand that you don't work for me, we work together as a team. It just so happens that I have a title, you have a title, right?
Hmm.
But when we take this framework of really being empathetic, learning our team members, learning how they operate, their strengths, their weaknesses, it can really help us to be and to show empathetic as we lead people. So how can employees, because this podcast is all about helping employees, whether you are a leader or an individual contributor. So, how can you tell if your leader truly cares about you, or if they're just saying the right things in the right moment?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is the key word is saying. Right? What are they doing? Because that's
Mm,
really where we know if someone is just doing something because they think it's gonna get the most out of you, or if they're actually doing it because they genuinely care. So if a leader says that, hey, we're going to have an open door policy and that door is actually closed. So meaning that if you come to them with a problem, they get defensive and they don't hear your feedback, then you know that you're not dealing with an empathetic leader. If a leader doesn't take responsibility for a decision that went wrong, if they don't say, my bad, y'all, I got you on the next one, or ask you how they can better support you next time, then you don't have an empathetic leader, right? So what they're doing goes way beyond what they're saying, because the greatest leaders, they don't need to say a thing, right? They show.
Wow. They just show it in their
They
action.
just show it.
Right. They just show it in their action. Man, that is great because a lot of employees deal with that challenge. That's a real challenge that they deal with on a
Especially right
day-to-day
now.
basis. Sometimes you don't know, can I trust my leader? Or do they really care about me, right? Other than just saying the right thing. And that kind of takes me to corporate leadership. You know the right things to say and how to say it in front of the right people.
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, can you show me better than you can tell me, right?
That's it. And you know what's, I want to make sure that people, the listeners, understand that, leadership is not a title, right? A lot of people who are people managers, they get put in these roles because they were great technically. And that's where the disconnect is taking place. Just because you are great in doing a thing does not mean you will be great leading the people. And then by no fault of some of these leaders, they really never get the training and skills they need to learn how to be better in those situations. So leaders, I love John Maxwell's definition. Leadership is influence. So even as an individual contributor, you are a leader. You can influence. So I want everyone listening to understand that it's not about the billet that you're serving in. It's about the influence and impact you're making.
Man, you are spitting this stuff out.
Appreciate it.
Man,
Appreciate
yes.
you.
But that is what leadership is all about. How can I influence you to be your best self? To get you to a point to where you are maximizing on your strengths and you can grow even in your weaknesses to become a better professional, a better human being. Uh, Again, as we talk about challenges, right, that employees face, one thing that comes to mind is sometimes leaders they get so in their heads that they're just leading. I'm the manager, I'm the leader, and they don't stop to think like, hey, how can I be empathetic and show that I truly care about this person, even though you know, productivity still needs to keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
The job needs to get done, right? So, what should an employee do if their manager really dismisses personal challenges that they may be facing, like needing time off for work for a family emergency?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of steps. So first thing in the military, we always said, if you got a problem, handle it at the lowest level. So look to find time on that leader's calendar. Just say, hey, can I get 15 minutes? First of all, you should have check-ins with this leader. If you're a direct report to this person, y'all should establish some type of check-in system. And one way you can know if that leader truly is empathetic is, do they keep pushing that check-in back? Right? Do they keep pushing your thing back as if you're not important? Because if they do, you need to nip it in the bud. You need to let your leader know, like, I am valued just as much as you are valued, right? Because no one's going to treat you as well as you should be treating yourself, but you have to set the precedence. So I want people to understand that first. The second thing is, in that conversation, if you can, like, learn your leader, learn their best communication style, their tactics, right? Understand if there's somebody you need to get a little more, assertive with, or if there's someone who gets it when you're a little more softer in the tone, right? So you got to know your leader. Y'all should have those conversations. Hey, how do I communicate? How do I provide you feedback? Vice versa. That should be a proactive conversation that you have. And when you're in that conversation and you say, hey, I requested time off in this example and you declined it. Well, let me tell you why this is urgent, right? Give them the urgency, why it's urgent, and then see what they respond with. For instance, if it's urgent because someone has surgery and you need to take care of them, that leader should, by all accounts, say, okay, cool, I got it. If they do not, right, this is the time you say, okay, got it. No point in getting upset. No point in trying to bump your head against the wall that is that person. Time to take it to the next level. All right, who can I talk that I can get support to? Right, maybe this is could be another leader that has influence over the leader that you deal with. Say, hey, I had this conversation. I thought this was going to go this way, but it didn't. What would you do? Right, get some say from them. What would they do? How would they handle that situation? And then once you get that, if it aligns with who you are, you can try that. Depending on how much time you have to get this. But you don't want to escalate it all the way up until you've tried what we call the escalation of force. Right. So you want to try handle it at the lowest level. Next step is go to someone else. You can get some information and insights. To make sure you're doing it properly, make sure you're going about it the right way, because sometimes our emotions can get in our way too, especially in this situation. And then
That's
at
true.
last ditch effort, you go to that, HR or whatever department you have that can represent you in that situation and circumstance. But you want to make sure that you know the policies on that too. Right? Don't just do it because you think that's the right thing. Like learn the policy, say this is the spot where it says that you have to give me time, right? So you might have to pull that card and, understand that you will also may have to be comfortable with that this person may not treat you the way that they used to, or it may start a spark. I know they say retaliation is not, welcomed, but you got to be on the watch for that and start documenting if necessary.
Yeah. So you mentioned HR, right? And I was going to go into the story how a lot of times employees, they do have family emergencies. Emergencies may happen with, their child, needing to go home from school, right? And I've seen certain situations where a lot of leaders sometimes aren't empathetic to their employees. I had this one situation. It happens wherever I go. I don't care where I work at. But I've had this situation where this leader had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I have an employee who abandoned their job," and I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean abandoned? Right? But because we have a policy that defines right job abandonment. Well, this person she left without telling me that she had to go, or even this, she left. I told her no, and she still left. I said, "Well, what was her reason for leaving?" Well, she stated she had a family emergency. She had to pick her child up from school. I said, "Well, I mean, but this is
Like
the
what?
thing, though. This is the thing, though. I can't believe that there are people who feel, or leaders, let me say that, who feel that they can control their employees like 100%. Like just because I say you can't leave. Like I didn't authorize you to leave. Like what in the world?
Yeah, that's narcissistic leadership, right?
Mm,
That's what's happening there, and they've gotten away with it for so long. And this is
yeah,
what I always caution leaders: you cannot lead the way you used to lead because people aren't going to put up with that.
right,
This is
right.
not. You
Especially
cannot
this
lead with
generation.
fear. Yeah, it's only going to get you so far if you continue to do that. And
Hmm.
I guarantee you, they will find a way because they are not afraid to research information is at their hands. They will find a way to turn that against you, and you will be sorry for it.
Yeah.
So leaders need to just understand, like, if you're someone who leads with this authoritarian type of style,
Hmm.
or someone who leads with narcissism, you're not going to go far. You're not going to last. So you better start making the changes.
Yeah. But I coach my leaders, especially when we're dealing with employee relation matters like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I coach them, I let them know that number one, we can't control anyone. We cannot control people. They have free will. But I think what we have to look at is, did she follow the process? If she did not, what was the process? Right? And or do we have a process, or do you have a process for how these things are communicated? Is it through text message? Is it through conversations where this person has to talk to their team lead first, right? So setting those expectations in the beginning to letting your employees know, hey, I understand situations are going to arise. However, this is how I would like for you to handle it or approach it so that I, as your leader, can support you.
Yeah, 100%. I love that, Prince. That's absolutely, there should be some type of like SOP on how this is handled. And
Hmm.
then, of course, there's case by case. If someone says they have a family
That's true.
emergency, automatically in my mind, I'm going to say family first. But a lot of leaders, and
Hmm.
I would ask that leader, like, okay, so what would you do if you were in that situation? Right?
If
How
you
would
were,
you,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
if you were in that situation, what would you do? And I would love to hear their
Right.
answer, because they will probably say that I would have left too. And then you would say, there you go. And if they didn't, they're probably not telling the
Hmm.
truth, because everyone knows why we work is to make sure our family is okay, to make sure we can provide, to make sure we can sustain life. Right. So if we are not supporting that why as leaders, then we're failing our people. Because earlier we said, like, as a leader, you people don't work for you, you work for them. And that's how we need to remember to look at it.
Yes. As we talk about empathetic leadership, it really makes a big impact in culture, in morale of the team, the department, and the organization. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Whether a leader is empathetic or not, how can empathetic leadership affect an employee's motivation, job satisfaction, and just really enjoying or just employee morale within their departments?
I mean, it's tremendous. I remember on one of my deployments, I was assigned like 14 soldiers, and they were young soldiers, and I was told that they just were unfit for the military. Like, they were failing left and right. They didn't know their job. They were getting behavioral. They were getting written up, all types of stuff. And I'm like, okay, why are they still being deployed? Because in my book, like, if they were unfit, they should not have that role, right? Because it's important.
Yeah.
You're there for a year or maybe more, and you have a very important job to do. But yet here was my plight as the leader. So I heard what the prior leadership said, but then I decided to go one on one with each person, and 15-minute
Hmm.
conversations. Hey, in your report it says this. Can you tell me more about why you're not passing the PT test? What's difficult for you with this? Can you tell me more about why you got what we call an Article 15? That's like a behavioral correction in your record. Can you tell me more about why you're improficient in your job task and drills? And they would all say, hey, we just were not supported. Right. Our
Mm.
leadership, we would try to ask questions. We would tell them we need more training, this and that. And they just would shun us off, or they would send us away or tell us to go to parade rest and not say anything. So
Wow.
that's an unempathetic leader. So I made it my task. I asked, how can I support you? Right. For those who couldn't pass the physical fitness test, I found a person who was a PT stud, is what we call them, who can train them on certain days so that they can make sure that they pass the next time. I would sit with them when in lunch to make sure they ate well, right? And I did it with them. And then for people who weren't improficient in their jobs, great. We have people who are experts in this, and they do it day to day, day in and day out. They led training. So not only did we benefit the people who were struggling, but we benefited and gave people leadership opportunities for those who really excelled. And what that did was that just made the whole team better, because we didn't come at it from an individualistic perspective. We said, we are a group, we're better together, right? So who wants to step up and do this? Great. Who needs the help? Great. And then we all help one another. And that was my best group till to date, till I got out the military. So
Hmm.
that's really the power of it, is you tap into people, and once they take ownership of something, now they feel like they are empowered. Now they're willing to innovate. They're willing to think of way better ways to do things. They're willing to go the extra mile. They're not tracking their work hours, looking at the clock like, oh man, 5 o'clock hit, I'm out. They're like, oh, let me finish this thing. They're bouncing ideas off one another. The energy levels are high. Communication is flowing. People want to cross train. They want to stay there, which retention is an issue right now. So there's a lot more to it that, leaders or people making the decisions, I don't even want to say leaders, but people making the decisions are just not seeing. They're too far away from the ground to understand that that's really who gets you the results. That's the success. And the sooner we tap into empathy and really connect with them, reconnect with them again, is the sooner we'll start seeing some of these issues that are happening in the corporate space go away.
Wow. Man, I appreciate you sharing that story and really diving in how you were able to play a part in their success, especially when others felt that they were or they didn't fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, as an HR professional, I hear that all the time. They're not a good fit. And
Oh, I can only imagine.
automatically, when a leader tells me that, questions just start going off in my head. Like, okay, let's slow this down a little bit because I really want to understand what do you mean by, this person doesn't fit. I had this leader one time, and I'm not kidding. Uh, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, this person doesn't fit. They're just not working out." And I said, Give me the reason why." And they were going through and giving me some really good examples. And I asked this question. I said, "How long have they been here?" And believe it or not, that new employee hadn't been here, but not even 3 weeks. And I said, "Well, how do we how do we make that determination, right? When they have a full 90-day process?" Right? And then I start asking questions. Okay, tell me, how did you help this employee? What did the training look like? Do you have check off lists? Do you have X, Y, and Z? And so going into all those questions and redirecting them to say, you know what? How can I help? Like changing their mindset with partnering with the team member instead of just saying this person doesn't fit. And come to find out, that individual that leader had never met with their employee. They
Yep.
discovered that
Sounds
they didn't fit because of the person that was training them. Well, a lot of times, if you have a regular employee that is training another employee, they don't have the patience like leaders do. They don't
right.
have the training as well to meet employees where they are. Just because someone has a great resume does not mean that they can come into this environment and you think they're just going to, just start
Right.
working right then and there.
So
I
many
think that
nuances to it.
environments matter and environments are different everywhere. And we have to look, and as leadership, we have to look and we have to say, am I doing my part to making sure that this person is successful instead of saying they don't fit?
Yeah, absolutely. And it that's a teachable moment for that leader. And it sounds like
Yes.
the leader needs to go through training as well, right? Not just the person he put in charge of being the trainer, but the leader needs to understand how best to serve in the leadership capacity. And we're seeing this time and time and time again. And it goes back to, a lot of people call them soft skills. I call them foundational skills. Goes back to
Mm,
emotional intelligence, goes back to understanding communication styles with different people, goes back to recognizing behavioral patterns, goes back to being proactive and asking, hey, how can I best support you? Do you have the resources you need? Doing check-ins, right? As a leader, if that person was there 3 weeks, why have they not met with this employee? Right. So there's so many things there that we can use as teachable moments.
yeah. So I want to ask you this before we kind of get out of here. Right?
Absolutely.
We talked about empathetic leadership and really giving some pointers to employees. But can you tell me or give us an example of a situation where you worked for a leader who lacked empathy, and how did that experience affect you, and how did you overcome it?
Man, the military is not known to be an emotionally intelligent culture, right? They're working on it now. So I've had plenty of leaders that were lacked empathy. And the reason, it could have been a number of things. Empathy has for a long time been seen as weak. when people think of empathy, they automatically associate that with being walked
Mm,
over, not being listened to, being seen as someone that you can get shunned off of, don't lacks authority, all these things. But it's quite the opposite. So what I've noticed in my time in corporate spaces with lack empathetic leaders that lack empathy, and in the military, was it really, really was a cancer to the team. And it really,
mm.
really made it so everyone had to walk on eggshells. They couldn't provide feedback, right? When that leader had a bad day, just come in and start yelling stuff that made no damn sense. They would bark orders because they wanted to look good. And what that did was it really completely destroyed the mission effectiveness. So it really, when you lack empathy as a leader, we talked about it before, it really creates a snowball effect, and not a good one. We're talking about a destructive avalanche on your people. And the people that stay there, they're probably just going to operate at the baseline level to do just enough, because their desire to do more was taken away by you with your lack of empathy. So that's how it impacts an organization.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
Are there any last minute tips that you want to share with employees or individuals that are listening on how they really navigate, dealing with empathetic leadership and how they can overcome and win on top?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing is, if you recognize that your leader is not leading with empathy, again, you have influence. So you can have conversations, what I like to call a coaching conversation, where you're asking questions. And what you're doing with this is you're kind of, whatever idea you have to help them be a better leader, you're kind of coaxing them to make them think it's their idea. So
Yeah,
for
you coaching
instance,
the leader.
yeah, exactly. Because we got to manage up, right?
Yeah,
When we're in
we
those
got to
roles.
manage up.
Yeah. So you got to get with that leader and say, hey, you mind if I set some time on your 15 minutes on your calendar? I would love to make sure that I'm doing everything properly, or I would love to learn more about what you think, you would like to see from me. And on that conversation, you say, hey, whatever issue you had, like, oh, I know I have this project that I'm working on that you assigned me, and I'm really enjoying it, but I'm running into this issue. Do you think that you can do X thing? Right. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, is that what you need to, they're starting to think it's their idea. And like, you're really asking for support, but they're like, oh man, I'm going to be a great leader, right? This is what they need. I got it. So you want to do things like that, right? Because it puts you in control, but it puts the onus to perform on them. And then it also makes them aware that you're doing everything in your power to be the best you can, and you're giving your all, but you need their help, right? So you want to do things like that to really make sure that the spotlight is on you for how great you're doing, but also to make sure that you're getting the support you need. You want to be transparent about that. Do not try to do everything on your own. If you
Mhm.
find a place in a spot, even if it's like down the road, mark that and say, hey, I know I looked at the project that needs to get done, and I'm thinking that in Q2, I may need a little bit of support in this way. Like, that shows initiatives. It shows that you know that you're well versed in the task, and it also shows that you're not afraid to get support. And that's what a leader is, right? A true leader. So do that. And then the other component I would say for the people listening is that when you are an employee, it's a great opportunity for you to learn, right? It's a great opportunity for you to sit back and watch. Find out, like, what are the key traits that you see in leaders that you want, and then find out and see the traits that you do not want and throw those away, so that you can become that great leader that you wish you had, right, in the future for the next group.
Wow, I love that. I really do. I
No,
love
thank
that
you.
because really what you're doing is, instead of just sitting back and taking that experience, what you're doing is strategizing on to how you can become a better leader in the future.
Hmm.
But not only that, I love how you said, we got to manage up, right? And we, I think, as employees, we too have to be responsible for coaching our leaders and informing them and letting them know. Sometimes it may not be direct, but you can do it directly and just say, hey,
Know
I
your
don't know.
leader. Yeah, you have
But
to
you
know
got
your
to know your
leader.
leader, right? And how you approach them, because you don't want this to turn into a situation where they start retaliating against you passively, right? uh, but
Exactly.
this topic really ties into something really important, and really how we should show up for each other in the workplace. It doesn't matter if you're a leader or if you're an individual contributor, an hourly worker. I think you, being empathetic and showing empathy in the workplace and with the people that you work really matters. And it really reminds me of this verse as we go into our encouraging Bible scripture for today, Colossians 3:12. It says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and peace." There, I'm gonna smack it right there. Compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and peace. And I think as we take all of these 5 words and really think about how we can implement this in our daily career, our daily work that we working with our leaders, working with our team members and our peers, that we can show up for each other, and we can all win at the end of the day. So thank you, Javon,
Absolutely.
for being with us on the show, and really just giving us a whole bunch of nuggets. I mean, man, I'm gonna go back through all of this and I'm gonna just jot stuff down, man.
I
Jot stuff
appreciate you,
down
man.
as I continue to coach individuals and people that I talk with day to day. So if you are listening, hopefully you've gotten some value from this episode. We want you to like, we want you to share, we want you to subscribe, we want you to comment, rate the show. We want you to also send in questions that you have for the show so we can answer them here on the Transparent HR podcast. But you know what? We got some more episodes that are coming out, and I'm super, super excited about this year and really all of your support. So thank you all so much, and we will see you on the other side. Peace.